So the contents are an introduction, part 1, Heroes of the Valyrian Ages, the Valar and the Maya, part 2, Heroes of the Ages of Stars, Eldar and Sindar, part 3, Heroes of the First Age, Elves and Edain. 4 is Heroes of the Second Age, Nolda and Númenóreans. Part 5, Heroes of the Third Age, Dunedain and Dwarves. Part 6, Heroes of the Third Age, Part 2, Hobbits and Dwarves. Part 7 is Heroes of the Third Age, Part 3, Hobbits and Dunedain. And then there's an index at the end. So I think I would like to start at part 5. So it's very well illustrated. As you can see, you want to go to page 110. It's 101. There we go. Here we go. Part 5. Heroes of the Third Age, Part 1, Dunedain and Dwarves. The Kings of Gondor and Arnor. Tolkien's tales of the Third Age are concerned primarily with the fate of the Númenóreans in exile. The United Kingdom of the Dunedain, or Men of the West, that with the death of High King Isildur in the Third Age, is divided, or as Tolkien phrased it, surrendered into the two kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. Surrendering is a word that recurs in Tolkien's works, most often in reference to the kingdoms of the elves, dwarves and men, and is nearly always associated with tragic consequences. The theme of division was clearly something that affected him profoundly. In his stories there are many examples of the distress, turmoil and disasters that arise from division. One of the main strands of his thought is apparent here. Division leads to tragedy, or at the very least, as with the eventual retreat of the elves from Middle-earth, to mourning and melancholy. Unification, if it can be achieved, leads to positive results, joy and contentment. Here is Isildur with the One Ring. And here is the family tree. Kings of Gondor and Arnor. Starts with Elendil, the tall, first High King, and his son is Isildur, second High King. And then we have two lines, Kings of Arnor and Kings of Gondor. Right down to Aragorn the Second, 16th and last chieftain, and on this side Denethor the Second, who of course had Boromir and Faramir. He was the 22nd and last steward. the founder of that greatest dwarf kingdom, Khazad-dûm, Moria, in the misty mountains in the ages of the stars. The seven fathers of the dwarfs, Tolkien tells us, are conceived and shaped by all the smith of the Valar. It is all whom the dwarfs call Mahar, meaning the maker, who fashions dwarfs from the substances of the deep earth. From all comes the desire to search down into the roots of mountains, a search to discover the brightest of metals and the most beautiful jewels of the earth. In the history of the dwarfs in the Third Age, a terrible fate befalls Thorin's folk. When, in delving deep in the mines of Khazad-dûm, the dwarfs awake a monstrous demon of fire. This is an ancient Maya fire spirit known as a Balrog or Valar-Kar, meaning demon of might. The source of Tolkien's inspiration for this gigantic monster is the Norse fire god, Surt, meaning the Black One, who was the lord of Muspelheim, the evil volcanic underworld of the Norse fire giants. In Norse mythology, Surt, armed with his flaming sword, will fight the Norse gods and set their world on fire in the final battle of Ragnarok. In Middle-earth, the Balrog with his flaming sword and scourges of fire slew King Thorin VI and drove Thorin's folk from Khazad-dûm. And here we have the Longbeards, dwarves of Thorin's line. Begins with Thorin I, Khazad-dûm, down to Thorin III, Stonehelm, Erebor. Heroes of the Third Age, Part 2, Hobbits and Dwarves. Origin of the Hobbit. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, one of the best known opening lines in the history of literature. This sentence told the world of the existence of hobbits. It was also the world's introduction to the first hobbit hero, Bilbo Baggins, of Bag End. The Hobbit was published in 1937 and rapidly established itself as a children's classic. Curiously, we actually know exactly where and how the first Hobbit appeared, in his creator's mind. On a warm summer afternoon in 1930, J.R.R. Tolkien was sitting at his desk in his study at 20 Northmoor Road in the suburbs of Oxford. He was engaged in the everlasting weariness of marking school certificate papers when, on a blank leaf, I scrawled, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. I did not and do not know why." Tolkien was a professor of Anglo-Saxon and Eventually, I thought I'd better find out what hobbits were like, but that was only a beginning. Indeed, only a beginning is a profound understatement. Tolkien really did start with the word hobbit. It became a kind of riddle that needed solving. He decided that he must begin by inventing a philological origin for the word as a worn-down form of an original invented word, Untitled, which is actually an Anglo-Saxon or English construct, meaning hole builder. Therefore, the opening line of the novel is an obscure lexicographical joke and a weird piece of circular thinking. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hole builder. Tolkien, not content to joke in just one invented language, extends this to a series of philological puns on hole and hole builder in Old English, Old German, hole, and an invented hobbitish speech, kuduk, based on constructs from Gothic, kud, dugan, and prehistoric German, klas, words. In later years he would invent two variations in his Elvish. Languages. Another one in the language of the dwarves and several in the Mannish tongues. This is an unusual way to develop a character and write a novel, but it was clearly an essential part of Tolkien's creative process. Nearly all aspects of hobbit life and adventure seem to evolve from names for people and things. Tolkien believed names resonate with the force of their legends. Words that name or describe dragons or demons often carry force over the human imagination, even if their history is unknown and their tale untold. Tolkien's hobbits naturally enough relate to the traditions of the land itself. Hobbits are derived in part from the mythology of the ancient Britons, a proto-Welsh-speaking people who were among the earliest inhabitants of Britain. These are the Celtic sprites of the untamed British hills and forests, the brownies who were commonly known as hobs, hobmen, hobthrusts, and hobhursts. These sprites were a diminutive, hairy, elusive race, mostly friendly towards humans. Brownies measured 2 to 3 feet in height and hid themselves away in the hollow hills, usually ancient grave mounds or barrow tombs of the wild Celtic landscape. It seems we do not have to look very far for direct inspiration for Tolkien's race of hole-dwelling little people. Hobs and hobmen were frequently called the people of the hills. Tolkien certainly knew a great deal about the tales and traditions of the Celtic brownies. Indeed, only a few miles from Tolkien's Oxford home, there is an ancient round barrow tomb still known as Hobhurst's house. Hobbs and Tolkien's hobbits are, however, two very distinct races in nature and purpose. What Tolkien gives us in his tea-drinking, pipe-smoking, home and garden-oriented hobbits is a distinctively English transmutation of those wild and anything but middle-class hobs and hobmen of the Celts. In fact, Tolkien's hobbits are a distillation of all that is fundamentally English, regardless of era. The anachronistic mix of the genteel cakes and tea manners of the late Victorians and the tribal traditions of the ancient Anglo-Saxons is intentional and meant to be gently satirical. At the same time, there is a serious intent on Tolkien's part to create in his hobbits a race that embodies the enduring spirit of that ideal Little England, characterised by is English and by an Englishman. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End. The first and original Hobbit created by J.R.R. Tolkien was a certain gentle hobbit by the name of Bilbo Baggins. We have examined the word hobbit and observed what that word contributed to the race. Now let us examine the given names of the quintessential hobbit, Bilbo, and see what they contribute to his individual character. Let us begin with the surname Baggins. Can be related to a Middle English Somerset surname. Bag meaning money, bag, or wealthy, while Baggins is a Lancashire dialect word for afternoon tea or snack between meals. Certainly, Baggins is an appropriate family name for a prosperous and well-fed hobbit. Superficially and initially, Bilbo Baggins is presented as a mildly comic, home-loving, rustic, middle-class gentle hobbit. He is harmless and obsequious, full of gossip, homely wisdom, wordy euphemisms and elaborate family histories. He is largely concerned with home comforts, village fetes, dinner parties, flower gardens, vegetable plots and grain harvests. Bilbo Baggins is a comic anti-hero who goes off on a journey into a heroic world. 'Tis a world where the commonplace knocks up against the heroic. Values are different in these worlds. In Bilbo Baggins we have a character with modern everyday sensibilities, whom the reader may identify with, but who has an adventure in an ancient, heroic world. Another aspect of Bilbo Baggins' character is revealed by an analysis of his first name. The word Bilbo entered the English language in the 15th century and probably derives from the Basque city of Bilbao, once renowned for the making of delicate swords of flexible but almost unbreakable steel. In Shakespearean times, a Bilbo was a short but deadly piercing sword, a small thrusting rapier. This is an excellent description of Bilbo's sword, the charmed elf knife called Sting. Found in a troll hoard, Bilbo is an elven blade that can pierce through armour or animal hide that would break any other sword. In The Hobbit, however, it is our hero's sharp wit rather than his sharp sword that gives Bilbo the edge. Whether he's escaping from orcs, elves, Gollum or the dragon, Bilbo's sharp wit allows him to solve riddles and trick villains. When we put the two names together as Bilbo Baggins, we have two aspects of our hero's character, and to some degree, the character of hobbits in general. On the face of it, the name Baggins suggests a harmless, well-to-do, contented character, while the name Bilbo suggests an individual who is sharp, intelligent, and even a little dangerous. Gandalf the Wizard. Gandalf the Wizard appears in The Hobbit as a standard fairy tale character, a rather comic, eccentric magician in the company of a band of dwarves. He has something of monsters, how to kill, location of treasure, how to steal, and an escape plan negotiable. Gandalf the Grey certainly fits into this tradition of the fairy tale. It is Gandalf who brings the dwarves and the hobbit together at the start of the story and sets them on their quest. It is his injection of adventure and magic into the mundane world of the hobbit that transforms Bilbo Baggins's life. It is Gandalf who leads the band of outlaw adventurers, Thorin and company, to Bilbo's door. And it is just this combination of the everyday and the epic that makes The Hobbit so compelling. Grand adventures with dragons, trolls, elves and treasure are combined. With afternoon teas, toasted muffins, pints of ale and smoke ring blowing contests. So in The Hobbit, Gandalf is a fairy tale magician with a traditional pointy hat, long cape and wizard staff. He is an amusing and reassuring presence like a fairy godfather. His later transformation in The Lord of the Rings is something of a surprise, but then Tolkien is making the point that behind all fairy tale magicians there are powerful archetypes from the myths and epics of a racial past. The sources of Gandalf are many. Merlin of the Britons, Odin of the Norsemen, Wotan of the ancient Germans, Mercury of the Romans, Hermes of the Greeks, and Thoth of the Egyptians. All are linked with magic, sorcery, arcane knowledge and secret doctrine. Most obviously, Gandalf, Merlin, Odin and Wotan all commonly took on the form of a wandering old man in a grey cloak, carrying a staff. Gandalf was comparable to the others in powers and deeds as well. Typically, these wizards served as guides and frequently used their supernatural powers to help heroes advance against impossible odds. Thorin and company. The quiet life of Bilbo Baggins at Bag End is forever disturbed by the unexpected arrival of 13 dwarves. Known as Thorin and company, these conspirators aided and abetted by the Gandalf the Wizard, recruit the respectable hobbit as a specialist burglar and entice him into joining in their adventure through Wilderland. As Tolkien's intention in The Hobbit was to deliberately write an adventure novel for children, the initial portrayal of the dwarves of Thorin and company is largely consistent with the rather comic fairy tale dwarves of Snow White. However, the reader does get a glimpse of the long, tragic history of the dwarves that inform the stubborn and ultimately heroic character of Thorin Oakenshield through his accounts of wars, feuds and battles in ages long gone by. Something of the ancient heritage of the dwarves is also conveyed in their names. Where do these names originate? Tolkien took the names directly from the primary source of Viking mythology, Iceland's 12th century text, the Prose Edda. The Edda suggests a crude account of the creation of the dwarves and then lists their names. This list is usually called the Dvergatal, or the Dwarf's Roll. All the dwarves in The Hobbit appear in this list: Thorin, Dwalin, Balin, Kili, Fili, Biffa, Boffa, Bomba, Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin and Gloin. Other names of dwarves which Tolkien found in the Edda and used later included As Tolkien implied in Bilbo Baggins's name, there is always something different and contrary in Bilbo Baggins's nature. He is a typical hobbit, full of practical common sense, but also sharp-witted and very un-hobbitish in his curiosity about the wider world. He is chosen on one level, Tolkien explains. As the lucky number 14, to avoid the unlucky number of 13 adventurers in Thorin's company. But most obviously Bilbo was chosen for the job of Master Burglar because of his stealth, as hobbits possessed a natural ability to move about quietly and unnoticed by larger folk. In the everyday world, a burglar is a criminal shunned by society. In the world of fairy tale and myth, the burglar is a celebrated hero whose skill, wit and bravery are celebrated, and whose deeds result in the enrichment of his whole family, tribe and people. This is typical of many fairy tale plots, such as Jack and the Beanstalk, or indeed many of the world's myths, where the hero travels to another realm and steals treasure, magical weapons, or even the secrets of making fire. Why do Gandalf and Thorin think Bilbo Baggins will make a good burglar to assist the dwarves in the theft of the dragon's treasure? The answer appears to come in Tolkien's own statement. Names always generate a story in my mind. Once again, Tolkien was indulging in wordplay. Bilbo Baggins was a burgher who became a burglar. Tom Shipley in The Road to Middle-earth explores this idea in his chapter, The Bourgeois Burglar. A burgher, he observes, was a free man of a borough, and this certainly applies to Bilbo Baggins. Even more, its derivative, bourgeois, describes a person with humdrum middle-class ideas. The Germanic cognate word berg means mound, fort, or stockaded house. A burgher is one who owns a house. A burglar is one who plunders a house. So we have the everyday humdrum middle-class burgher entering a fairy tale world and being transformed into his opposite,